James chapter 1, verse 2 to 3 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." What do you think about that?
Well, first off, I got to say that I'm not a biblical scholar by any means, right?
Yeah.
But I think in opening up with that verse, it's very indicative, right, of where the conversation is going to be guided. So I love the fact that you opened with something like that. And this was also not pre-planned. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Brother, it's such as life, you know, and particularly such as life for a man. And not just for a man, but for a successful man. You have to understand that everything in life that's worthwhile is on the other side of hard work. It's on the other side of trials and tribulations. It's on the other side of difficult scenarios and circumstances that have allowed, more than anything, for you to uncover your true potential and your willingness to remain in faith during tough times, so that at the end of the trial, at the end of the test, at the end of the circumstance, you not only see what you're truly capable in reference to your character as a man, but you're also truly capable when you have the Father on your side.
But don't you think that's easier said when you're not in it?
Of course, when you're in the middle of the storm, you're like, yo, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to see this through the end? But what I implore the people that are going through that storm is, if you can only see your next step, just take that. God says, like, tomorrow's worries are tomorrow's worries. Live today. Live today. So if you are going through those trials and tribulations and you're testing the depths of your character, it's inevitable that there's going to be times where you're going to think that it's endless. I'm sure that you've been put in positions where you've been going through a hard time and you think to yourself, yo, God, like, how am I going to get out of this? Because I for sure can tell you that I've been put through tests and tribulations like that.
Which I'd love to specifically ask you about that, because I was actually talking with Samuel yesterday, and there's something that I told him.
Shout out to the Works.
Yes.
Phenomenal people there.
I was talking to him and I said, you know, I'm in a tricky situation in my life because I've taken the route that doesn't make sense. And then I told him, one of the things that
But wait, does it make sense to who?
But listen. It doesn't make sense if it were to be on paper. It doesn't make sense if most people outside in that don't know what, you know, the reasoning for this is, they would say, okay, why are you making this decision? It doesn't make sense, you know. And I told him, I was like, brother, you know what I'm in right now? And I feel like God's revelation to me is, whatever requires more faith to do that. And it's difficult, because imagine how boring life would be if the decisions that you made, you knew the outcome of. And it's hard when you're going through it to think that. But if you take the route that requires more faith, then the things that will happen and the results that will come, you know, the relationships that you make, the money that you make, will be something that you cannot imagine.
Unfathomable.
And that's kind of, you know, what we were talking about yesterday, which goes to what I just said, that it's hard in the storm and it's hard in, you know, when you're in it to think that way. But what were some, like, I want to say like one specific example that you really had to question God and say, I don't know if I'm getting
Brother,
this.
so before we get into that, right? Like, when you say that you had to make the decision that almost seemed absurd to most people, you have to understand that in life, most people don't have the results that you seek. So if you take advice from most people, you're going to get an average result. So on the contrary, when you make a decision and the decision seems crazy to most people, that's when you know you're in that pocket, bro. You're in that pocket of deviating from society. Because that's truly where all greatness stems from. You can't sit here and name someone who was great which was also average. It doesn't exist. So when you deviate from society, okay, and you deviate from the norm, and you deviate from the standard, and you make the harder decisions, you have to understand that you are deliberately making the decision to travel the road less traveled. You're deliberately making the decision to go on faith rather than walking by what society deems as normal or acceptable, right? So when you make that decision, you also have to understand that when you make that decision to walk by faith, you are going to be attacked from the other side. Once you make that decision and you have conviction in that decision that you are going to follow Christ, okay, you have to understand that you are going to be attacked from the opposition. Just think throughout the Bible, all of the accounts of people that turned their life over to Christ, that decided to walk with Christ. These people didn't live easy lives. Because think of the alternative of an easy life, okay? Of an easy life that is unfulfilled, an easy life that is average, an easy life that at the end of it, you will not have lived in your purpose. Because we go back to that statement, anything worthwhile is going to come at a price of sacrifice, at a price of hard work, at a price of foregoing the immediate satisfaction for something greater than you with a higher positive influence for not just yourself, but for the people around you.
So was there a specific scenario where you had to live that, or at least, looking back now, that was the lesson that you took away from it?
Brother, look, I think that any successful person that you interview, okay, is going to have a rocky past. Okay. Yeah. You've interviewed a lot of people. Would you say that is one of the most indicating factors if they've had a very interesting and colorful past?
Yes. Because going back to that verse, when your faith is tested, that's what produces perseverance, and perseverance produces longevity. Longevity produces success. You can keep going down that ladder, but 100%, I would say that.
Yeah. So
I'm asking you if you have a specific.
I'll give you a specific scenario. Okay. When I decided, okay, to get into real estate, the idea of having to go out of my comfort zone to people was crazy. The idea of leaving a professional sales job, making well into the six figures, cold turkey, and stopping that was absolutely insane to the average person. But when God puts something in your life and he plants that seed in your heart of you being destined for greater things, if you don't make that jump and you don't make that leap and you don't make that decision, you will live with resentment for yourself for the rest of your life.
How do you know if that seed or that voice or that idea is from God?
So I think that there was a very interesting conversation that I had recently where somebody told me, hey, you saying a prayer is you talking to God. And the intuition that you feel in the center of your heart is God talking back to you. Now, that could go two ways, right? Sometimes we get intuition that's of the flesh, and sometimes we can get an intuition from source, from God, that says, hey, look, this is what you're destined to do. I think that the biggest determining factor for me personally as to when I'm making a decision to understand and qualify something as it being of God is praying about it and asking for confirmation. When I get that inkling of something that I'm supposed to do, I'll stop and I'll ask God and I'll say, hey, God, am I supposed to do this?
But what is that confirmation?
Brother, I'll literally ask God. I'll be like, hey, God, like, give me a confirmation. If I'm supposed to do this, give me a confirmation. And that confirmation will come in various ways. The confirmation for me personally in my life would be, I'll ask God for the confirmation, and then within the hour, I'll have an email saying, hey, your offer was accepted. Or I'll have a text message from my attorney saying, hey, I don't know how this happened, but the issue at hand was resolved. If you ask for the answer and you get that answer in the form of a confirmation, you have to take it, bro.
Seek and you shall find.
Because, of course, seek and you shall find. Knock and it will be opened unto you, right? So it's one of those things where that's really a method that I personally use is when I have uncertainty about a specific thing, like I'll bring it to God. And when I feel that intuition in my gut, right? When I feel that intuition in my gut and I have that strong sense of conviction, I'll bring it again to God and I'll be like, yo, God, like, give me confirmation. Like, give me confirmation that this is what I'm supposed to do. And if the confirmation comes along, then I know it's a for sure yes. And then if the confirmation doesn't come along, then God says, hey, look, like, I'll guide the ship, but you gotta make it happen. You gotta steer.
I was listening to a podcast with Luke Bauman, and he was like, the relationship with God is one of a captain and someone that steers. Meaning you can't be arrogant enough to think that you are the one that is going in the direction. And once you get arrogant, God will humble you really quickly. You'll say, okay, so you're in control? Cool. This is what's going to happen. And then, but that relationship with God also requires your work. And I think that's something maybe traditional Christianity, as far as the sense of it's not as normal for a Christian, or what you hear of a Christian, what you hear at church, to be extremely hardworking. Like, that's not kind of like, it's more, the way that I see it sometimes going to church, it's more of like a relationship where God is a genie in a way. It's like, oh, pray about it, which is powerful. There's power in prayer 100%. But going back to that relationship of a captain and somebody that's steering, like, it requires your work. And I would argue your best work for God to work, if that makes sense.
Of course, bro. But it's like everything in life, bro. Everything in life comes at a price. Okay. You just need to ask yourself if you're willing to pay that price. Right? You can chill at the crib and play video games, and that's gonna come at the price of your future. Or you can financially move ahead in life to take care of the people around you into the future, to be able to be a positive contributing factor to society, and that's also going to come at a price. But I will tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it takes work. It takes work. The age-old analogy of reaping what you sow. There's not a single story in the Bible where somebody got something out of nothing. There's not a single story in the Bible. I could be wrong because I'm not a biblical scholar, but correct me if I'm wrong. There is not a single story in the Bible where somebody received everything for nothing. So in understanding that, right, that soft mentality that we have in today's society, where we're entitled to things and we feel that things should come to us just because we believe that we're special, is completely, okay, a distorted mindset that doesn't align with the mindset of God, which comes back to that point of strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men. It's a cycle. And now I believe that we are in the part of the cycle where the future is optimistic, but it is definitely going to take work. It's going to take work to be able to realign the country, to gravitate towards a more traditional and Christian view and more traditional and Christian perspective of the world. And that consciousness towards Christ is coming back. And you can see it. That's why people are so excited. People are there's a very subtle but powerful undertone of optimism for the country. And I believe that missing piece is what's going to propel the country forward and what is going to give us that momentum that we need to continue to expand into a bright future.
Going back a little bit to what you said about the price, that everything has its price. You just have to be understanding if that's something that you're willing to pay. Has there ever been a moment where you said, man, this price might be a little bit too much. I don't know if I could do this.
There has been, bro. But the thought and the action of quitting are two completely different things. The thought of quitting and the action of carrying out quitting are very distinct. I'm going to explain to you what I mean. There are going to be times in your professional career, inevitably, where the thought of quitting will come up. But just because you think about quitting doesn't mean that you could ever carry that action out. Because the biggest determining factor between those that make it and those that don't, besides the ability to handle immense pressure, is not quitting. You can think about quitting, so long as you don't make it a habit. You can never make quitting, the thought of quitting, a habit. There's going to be days where you're going to feel like quitting, bro, because the pressure is the pressure is a lot, bro. The pressure is a lot. But guess what, bro? That pressure makes diamonds. And that pressure introduces you to yourself. And that pressure really solidifies your character as an individual and your character as a man to be able to handle future situations with more grace, future situations with more expertise, future situations with more experience. So you know what I say, bro? I welcome the pressure. I handle the pressure. I appreciate the pressure, because at the end of the day, that pressure, okay, is not something that you should ever take for granted. It's something that you should embrace and appreciate, because at the end of the day, it is a privilege. What do you rather? Work a regular 9 to 5? No, bro. You have to go out and impose yourself properly into the world. And that comes through a set of things that you live your life by. Foundational pillars, discipline, hard work, keeping your word, okay? Different things that you do and a standard that you set for yourself to become the very best version of the God, of the person that God created you to be.
Do you believe that?
You can never quit, though. That's
Yes,
the
I
caveat. You can think about quitting. It's inevitable, because I've thought about quitting, but I've never carried. I've never carried the action of quitting out.
And then I would argue the fact that what happens is once you start getting quitting, and then you get into the habit of quitting, that then becomes your identity. And so then you approach everything that you do as you don't take it as seriously.
It's an easy way out. It's a cop-out, bro.
Yeah. And like I said in a clip that I posted, that the irony of that is that it's going to take a lot longer than you expected. All the things are going to take a lot longer than expected. It's going to take a lot longer than expected to get the person on your podcast, to make the money you want to make, to close the deal that you want to close. All these different things. But then when it happens, it's kind of like a snowball. It just all happens all at once. You're like, oh, crap. And it happens much faster than you can imagine. But
we have this conversation all the time.
yes.
Okay. We have this conversation all the time with other guests that you're wanting to bring on, or different projects that you want to take on to expand, the platform. And brother, one thing that I always bring you back to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I tell you, assertive patience. What is assertive patience? Assertive patience is taking the necessary steps forward without needing an immediate success. Okay. It's being patient enough to understand that it's going to take more time than you anticipate. It's going to take more money than you anticipated. It's going to take more energy than you anticipated. It's going to take more headaches than you anticipate. But one thing is for certain. If you assertively move forward every single day and you stay in that patience, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it takes, you need to have that mentality of whatever it takes. It doesn't matter if it's going to take 12 months, 24 months, 48 months. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take, so long as you psychologically and mentally make that decision in your mind that it is going to work no matter what, because it's not over until I win, then you know you're in that spot.
Go back to the quitting mindset, because the question that I wanted to ask you. I also think that if you call yourself a follower of Christ, you should look at Christ as an example. And I don't think there was one example of Jesus quitting on anything. Didn't quit on a person, didn't quit on his mission that he was here for, didn't quit on his disciples. And sometimes we forget, like Christians, that you think it's just like a set of rules. You think you just, read the Bibles, abide by the Bibles, and that's what. But the actual goal of being a Christian is to be more like Christ. And if you want to take it to that level, Christ never quit at anything that he did. So,
that's a very interesting point, and I don't think that I've ever thought about it that way. But in you shedding that light on that perspective, I think it's not only powerful, but also very accurate. To your point of Christ not quitting on things, like he didn't quit on a single person. And to this day, I'm sure that you've messed up multiple times. I sure have. He's also never quit on me. He's never quit on you. It's one of those things where, bro, I always say that God's biggest gift to us is life. And our biggest gift back to God is what we do with our lives. The last thing that I would ever want is to kneel before my Creator and have that quitter spirit. I want my Creator, when the time comes that I kneel before him, to say, you lived the life that I had planned out for you, and you did a great job in carrying out your purpose. That's what I want. The last thing that I would want is for me to get up there and he tell me, hey, you didn't do this, 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 and this. And there are things that I'm going to carry out into the future that most people will not agree with. But it's something that God has put in my life to the point where it's bigger than me, and I know that it's the mission that God has ordained for my time here.
On the way to, or in the process of you living out your purpose, and in the process of you going through that, it takes me to a story of, I believe it was Peter or Judas. It was one of the disciples. A story of them being on the boat and being out in the sea. Of, it was stormy, they were on a boat. I think it was Christ, he was on the boat, but he was sleeping, but it was like bad, it was storming, it was waves, it was wind, all this different stuff. They all thought they were gonna die. They were all freaking out. And then I believe it was Peter, don't quote me if I'm wrong, but one of the disciples was like, Christ, like, wake up, like, you need to save us. Like, we're gonna die, we're gonna drown right now. And then he said, oh, you have little faith.
Ye have little faith.
And then he stopped it. And I always think, and I've heard it multiple times, that what that analogy implies is that your relationship with Christ and your walk with Christ doesn't mean that there's not going to be storms, and doesn't mean that there's not going to be times of you doubting. But it's not you looking at what's going on around you, but trusting who's with you. Has there ever been times where, going back to that storm, where you kind of felt like this is like the end of the road? Like there's nothing. Like your back is against the wall. There's you don't see any way through.
Brother, there's been multiple times in my life where my back has been against the wall facing the sword. And during those times, right, inevitably the storms are going to come. Mm-hmm. The tough times are going to come, right? But one verse that really sticks out to me during those times is, be still and know that I am God, right? Everything in the world is so mathematically perfect, right? So much so that it is a direct correlation, okay, of our Creator perfectly creating us. Think about it, bro. You can go 100 years and you don't need a replacement brain or a replacement heart or a replacement anything if you take care of yourself, right? Everything is so precise and so perfect, right? The same way that He created you, He also has plans for you in your life. So while He has plans to prosper you and not to hurt you, He also has plans to test you. He has plans to test your faith. He has plans to test your character. He has plans to see what you're truly made of. Because it's very easy to go to God when everything is great. It's very easy to go to God when everything is fantastic. It's very easy to pray when things are going your way. And although there's people that forget about God when things are going great, those people soon learn. But it's also, I would say, more important to go to God when things are not what you envision, when things are going bad, and remaining in that faith. Because during that time, God will see the testament of your character. Oh, like I gave him this, I took this away, and now I inserted this to throw, a little bit of a test of faith. And now, because things are going a little bit hard, now He's doubting me. Think about how I couldn't begin to fathom how it works, and I'm not going to pretend to. But imagine how that has to make Him feel when you doubt something. I've given you life. It's a privilege to be here. And you're going to doubt me because things aren't going your way, or or a situation arised that is unfavorable. Because people will often say, oh, but if there was a God, how could this happen? You're wrong. You're wrong and you're naive. Because everything has a plan. Everything has a purpose. Everything is pre-calculated. The same way that you cannot make your heart beat, you cannot carry the weight of the world. So don't pretend that you can, or pretend to justify, or pretend to start to understand why things happen, why they happen, and how they happen. It's like you're playing, you're a child and you're playing a grandmaster in chess that sees 900 moves ahead of you. So it's one of those things where when things go wrong, I think that the most important thing is remaining in faith and sticking with God. That's the most important thing, man.
What would you say to those that say, well, I don't feel God?
For the people that say that they don't feel God, this is what I would say, okay? I also don't want to give the wrong impression that I've always had this strong conviction and I've always seeked God above all else. That wasn't me, okay? There's been several things that have happened in my life that had led me to following Christ, okay? To the people that say that they don't feel God, the people that don't necessarily yet believe in God, what I would say is, go to a quiet place. wherever that quiet place may be, whether it's a bathroom, a room, wherever it is that you can be alone, which we're never truly alone. We're always with God, because God always has that presence in our lives. Go to that alone place, that quiet place, and say, hey, God, I don't know, I'm not sure about you, I don't have faith, I don't yet believe. These are the things that are in my heart right now. These are the things that I'm dealing with. Show me something. Show me something. I want you to show me something. It's like that story with Patrick Bet-David, where Patrick Bet-David was having a very, very tough time. Whatever it was that he was going through at that time when he was starting his business, whatever the case was. And he wasn't in speaking terms with his mother. And he did something very similar. He was like, hey, God, I don't believe in you. I'm sobbing, I'm crying, and I'm paraphrasing here. I'm not.
Yeah.
But he says, if you're real, right now, I want my mom to call me. And he says a story with chills. He says he looks down and there's a phone call of a blocked number. And he answers the phone, and on the other side of that phone call is his mother saying, hey, I don't know what it is, but I felt like you needed me. That is God proving to Patrick Bet-David at that specific moment that he's always watching, that he's always around, that he's always listening, and he always has your back.
And I want to add something to it that just popped into my mind, that to what I said about feeling God. I think too many people place emphasis on feeling God. God doesn't need your feelings. God doesn't need to be felt, because he is. Whether you want to feel him, whether you want to, well, God, I have this fire in me. I just feel you today. I feel the Holy Spirit. Whether you feel it or not, it doesn't change the fact that he's real.
He remains the same always.
He's the same. What is it? I forgot the verse. That he is the same always.
He's the same
Before,
always. He's
now,
unchanging.
Future.
He's unchanging.
So do you think that too much emphasis is placed on, I don't have this fire for God. I don't feel like God, so I'm not praying. I'm not reading the Bible.
Bro, it's the same as motivation, bro. That feeling is equivalent to motivation, and motivation is fleeting, bro. The most important thing is being disciplined and seeking God every single day. Whether you feel him or not, he says, seek and you shall find. If you seek God and you're genuine in your heart, bro, if you're genuine in your heart and you're seeking God, God will reveal himself to you, man. You just need to be open to receiving God in your life. Now, if you're not open and you're a skeptic and you're also a terrible person, you can't expect that. Yeah. Because although God is there, you don't allow for him to unfold and manifest in your life, right? So he tells you, okay, carry on with whatever it is that you're doing. Once you're ready, I'm here. And that's always something that has been true, bro. Yeah. I was raised to believe in God. And there have been times where I've deviated out of stupidity, out of being young and making reckless and stupid decisions. But God was always there, bro. God was always there. And when I look back, there's proof in certain circumstances where God's hand was favorable in my life. And I will claim Jesus Christ until the day that I die.
No, obviously the people can't see it, but you have a tattoo on your upper chest that says Jesus saves.
It's at the end of my throat and my esophagus. It's the last tattoo that I've gotten and the last tattoo that I'll ever get. Okay? It was a tattoo that I got after my life had been saved by Jesus Christ. And I went to the tattoo place, right? Random tattoo place. It wasn't a random tattoo place. It was very interesting. It came full circle. It was the tattoo place where I had gotten my first tattoo ever. And I said, wow, you brought me to this place. I'm going to get this tattoo that says Jesus saves. And I'm going to tattoo it at the end of my esophagus right here, on my neck, essentially. Because I will claim that and I will use my voice for that until the day that I die. And it's interesting. So I went to the place and I told them, look, bro, this is exactly what I want. I told them, give me a piece of paper and give me a pen. And I wrote it out. The tattoo is in my handwriting. And I wrote, Jesus saves. And I got Jesus saves tattooed in my own handwriting on my neck. But yeah, it was a very interesting experience. I'll definitely never get another tattoo. Not that I regret the ones that I have. Yeah. I think that they're scars more than they are tattoos, because every single tattoo that I have is a lesson that I've learned in life. But undeniably, bro, and unequivocally, my life, my heart, my mind, my soul belongs to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Yeshua. That's it. There's nothing else.
Well, end on this because I want this to be your closing. Do you think Jesus can save anybody, or do you think there's people too far from God? Because, it's for the people that made it to the end of where we're at right now. There's definitely some people that, no, but God, I've done too much. No, but God, I have this. No, but God, why would God do this if I'm this type of person? Like, do you think there's anybody that's too far from God?
That is the enemy planting seeds of doubt into your mind, saying, oh, but you've done this. Oh, but you've done that. Whenever you feel that, the first and most important thing you need to do is run right back to God. The moment that you've committed a sin, the enemy wants you to think that you are no longer deserving of God's unconditional love, which couldn't be anything further from the truth. The moment that you commit that sin, immediately you have to go run right back to God and say, God, forgive me. I made a mistake, and repent genuinely with your heart for those people that feel that they are too far away from God. I would say, humbly, this is from somebody who's messed up a lot in their lives. Okay? Humbly, give him an opportunity. Because if you are so far gone, you've really got nothing to lose and the world to gain. Because the peace that comes from God is a supernatural peace that surpasses any human understanding. For those that feel that way, my heart goes out to you, but I promise you this. That unconditional love and that unconditional understanding can only come from one place. Most people try to find that in alternative things, whether it's drugs, alcohol, ayahuasca, whatever the case, you're seeking something. And if you're seeking that thing is always going to be fleeting because it is not the authentic. Turn to Christ. Ask God for the proper guidance. Hey, God, I'm not necessarily sure about you, but give me a sign. And I promise you that he will come through because God never disappoints, bro.
I love that. I would agree with that. I hope that hits some of you guys on your heart. And I'll just put a cherry on top of that. I saw a post the other day or a quote that said, the devil calls you by your sin and not your name. But God knows your sin and calls you by your name. And I think that's just a testament of God's unwavering and unfailing love, and that there's nobody that's too far from God. So I hope that, for those of you guys that made it to the end, this was definitely one of my favorite ones. It was a special one. Definitely the next one we do, we got to upgrade it even more because we had a podcast before. Long story short, if you guys go back, maybe it was like 3 months ago, we did it in a super cool scenery, but the guy was like, there was a guy kicking us off. So we were like 15 minutes in. The guy was like, yo, you got to leave. And then at a certain point, it was just like.
We still played that off pretty cool, though.
Yeah, we did. So, so we had to run this back because, we had to sit down, cómodo, we're chilling. But guys, if you made it to the end, I'm going to link all your descriptions of your social medias. I think, I definitely learned a lot from you. Obviously, for those of you guys that don't know, we do have a business relationship, but also a friendship and also a brotherhood, I would say. And I learned a lot from you. So I hope that in this interview of however much time this was, that people can just have a glimpse and learn from you, because I learn from you on a daily basis, I would say. And yeah, bro, I thank you for taking the time.
I love it. Let's do it. We're gonna seal this podcast with an Our Father. Okay, so let's seal it up and go right off into the sunset. All right. So, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. God, I pray over every single person that has watched this podcast. I ask that you allow the words that are uttered out of my mouth and Jacob's mouth to land in the hearts and in the minds of those that so desperately need it. And for those that don't have faith, God, I ask, if they do come to you with a genuine heart and they ask for a sign, that you show them a sign the way that you've shown me. And thus, me turning my life over to you, because I know that with you, all things are possible. Continue to bless us endlessly as we take this to the top. In your Son's most powerful and precious name, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, we thank you. Amen.
And I'll see you guys on the next one.